Hello and welcome to Children's Church. Let's start with our memory verse. In Him, now this Him is talking about God. So in God, in Him, we live and move and have our being. That's Acts 17:28. Go through it again. In Him, meaning God, we live and move and have our being. Acts 17:28. You know, we've been talking about Paul and Silas on Paul's second missionary journey, and they have been traveling. They've been at Philippi, but remember, they got asked to leave the city, so they went down to Thessalonica, and it's right down here. And as Paul's custom was, Paul, Silas, and Timothy are traveling, and as his custom was always, on every Sabbath, meaning Saturday, he would go into the Jewish synagogues. And he was trying to teach the people to understand that the Jewish Messiah, the one that they had been promised, had already come, that he was Jesus, that he had already come. He was their Redeemer, their Messiah, and he was trying to explain this to them. Well, some of the Jews believed, and a lot of the Greek and Roman people that were there believed. But the Jews that didn't believe became extremely jealous because Paul was taking people out of their synagogue. And that made them furious. And they were so upset that they actually hired people to stir up trouble. Now, these people did not have the truth in them. They were not telling the truth at all. They were just paid to cause a problem. And so Paul and Silas and Timothy had been staying with a man whose name was Jason, and he lived right near the synagogue. Well, the mob came to find Paul and Silas, and they weren't there at the time. So they grabbed Jason and some other Christians that were there and dragged them into the center of town before the magistrates. And this mob was saying all kinds of things. They said that these men were defying Caesar's decrees and that they were proclaiming this new God, this new king, Jesus, was going to take over all of the Roman Empire and all that kind of stuff. It was all a lie. But the people didn't know that. And here again, they listened to these hired men and believed what they were saying. And Paul and Silas and Jason and these other Christians never got a chance to say the truth about what was really going on. And the magistrates put Jason and these other people in their custody, and they had to post a bond, and then they were let go. Well, late at night, after all the city had kind of settled down, the Christian brothers sent Paul and Silas and Timothy away to the town of Berea. Now here's Thessalonica and then Berea. It looks like it's not very far on the map, but it actually is a lot longer than it looks. So they went to the city of Berea. Well, as always, the first place they went was to the Jewish synagogue. Well, the people in Berea were nicer people. They had kinder hearts. They were more generous, and they had better character than the people in Thessalonica. And so they not only received what Paul and Silas and Timothy were saying, but they looked at the scriptures. They studied the scriptures every single day to see if what Paul and Silas said were true. And of course it was, because all that they had said came right out of the Old Testament scriptures. And the problem was that the Jews over in Thessalonica were so furious at Paul and Silas that they came all the way over to Berea just to stir up trouble again. They weren't satisfied to do it just in their town. They had to go all the way to Berea and try to cause problems again. And so the Christian brothers, because of the hatred and all the lies that the Jews were telling, they sent Paul down to the seacoast, down to Athens. So here's Berea up here, and they sent some people with him, and he went all the way down to Athens, and that was a long way. And so Paul went down with the Christian brothers, and he sent word back that for Paul and for Silas and Timothy to come to him as quickly as they could. Now they're up in Berea teaching the new Christians up there. So it took them a while to come. Well, while Paul was waiting in Athens, he would spend his days not only teaching the Jews that were there, but going into the marketplace and telling everybody that would listen about Jesus. And as he was walking around day after day, everywhere he looked, he saw statues that were idols to other gods. You can see these up here in this picture. I don't know if you can see this, but there are statues everywhere. Every one of these is supposed to be some sort of god up around the buildings, sometimes on top of buildings, sometimes just statues in the city. Everywhere he looked, there were idols. And he even found one that said to an unknown god. You can see this huge idol back here. There are 3 up here on this building. All of these are images of idols. And then Paul saw this one that said to an unknown God. And there were a group of people there that were called philosophers. Now, all they did all day long was talk about new ideas, about new thoughts that people had. And Paul was able to join that group. And he said, I can see that you are very religious, because everywhere I look, there are idols everywhere. There are gods everywhere. And you've even got one that says to an unknown God. And he said, I want to explain to you who this is. And he started telling them about the one true God. And he said, God took a man, Adam, and from him, he made people all over the earth, and he sent them out everywhere. And he explained about them, and he told them about God's son, Jesus, who came. And he's explaining to these people, and some of them believe what Paul said. They understood that this was the one true, real God, and that all these other statues were just that. They were just statues. And some of them believed, but some of them didn't, and they got pretty upset with Paul. And so he was able to talk to a lot of people. And he said, there is a day coming. God has commanded that people everywhere are to repent. That means turn away from the things they've done wrong and turn to his son Jesus. And he has set a day in the future, it's not even here yet, that he will judge the whole world by his son Jesus Christ. Well, some of the people were curious and wanted to hear more. And Paul left their council meeting, and then the people that turned to the Lord, he started working with them, teaching them, explaining to them, because they didn't know a single thing about the real God. And so Paul was able to work with them while he's waiting for his friends to come to him. Now I want to show you a few things. If you're in some parts of the world, you might see gods that look like this. Well, this God has eyes, but can it see? Can it see anything? It has ears, but can it hear our prayers? It has hands, but do they actually do anything? Can they reach out and touch us and help us and do things for us? No. Somebody made this. Can we create God? No. Anything that we create with gold or silver or stone or whatever is just a pretend God. Now, I have made some pretend gods, and you can make them out of anything you want to. This is just a paper towel roll, and I could add all kinds of details to it. It's just for fun, just to show. And these are some little Lego statues that I created. Whoops, that one won't even stand up. But that's what people were doing back then. They were creating, they had this idea of some sort of God, and they were creating with their own hands a God that they would worship and think that that God, whatever it looked like, would be able to help them. But you know what? These are all just blockheads, aren't they? No matter what kind of blocks or gold or silver we make it out of, they're just blockheads. Can they help us? Can they answer our prayers? Can they heal us when we're sick? These are just blockheads, and we can tear them apart just as easily as we made them because they're not real. We know our God is real because He lives in our hearts, and we see evidence of what He does by the things that He does around us, like healing us. And another thing you can do, I just drew a bunch of space stuff, space rocks and planets and stars and the earth and the moon, and I just drew those and colored them. And then I wrote on here, the unknown God is the God of all the universe. Now, can we make the sun? Can we make the moon and the stars? No, we can make pictures of them. But our God did all of that, and He's real. And He is the one who takes care of us, not these silly things that people worship. That's all for today. We'll see you next time.